Welcome to the 700 Club. Here's a story you may not have heard. There are undercounts in 6 predominantly Republican states and overcounts in 8 predominantly Democrat states. Mistakes made in the 2020 census could be a tipping point in the upcoming midterm elections.
That's right. Not only could those mistakes affect who controls Congress, they could actually have an impact on who wins the presidential election. Matt Gulka brings us the story from Washington.
How many people are in your state? Well, the census tries to figure that very question out every 10 years, and the results could go a long way to determining the balance of power on Capitol Hill. But an unprecedented 2020 and a variety of factors led to a lot of undercounts and overcounts. Trying to get an accurate number of just how many people are in the country is a tall task under normal circumstances. Millions of people, different states. The census tries to sort it all out every 10 years. An analysis of the results from the most recent census shows a miscount so large in 14 states that it affected the number of congressional seats in some of them. A census review indicates a statistically significant undercount in 6 mostly Republican-leaning states: Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Florida, Texas, and Illinois. Add to that an overcount in mostly Democrat-leaning states: Hawaii, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New York, Utah, Rhode Island, Delaware, and Ohio. It's important since the count helps determine things like federal funding and whether a state gains or loses a House seat.
When you're talking about a very close midterm election coming up and control of the House up for grabs, these two, gains or losses could make the difference between controlling and not controlling the House for the next 2 years.
While errors are common in all census surveys, it's possible these saved Minnesota from losing a House seat and prevented Texas and Florida from gaining even more seats. Texas could have been undercounted by up to 500,000 people, and just under 200,000 would have been needed to gain a third House seat. They ended up getting 2. So what happened? It's tough to pinpoint given multiple factors, but a pandemic probably played heavily into the counts, according to Census Advisor Steve Jost.
The states with higher rates of cases actually had lower quality counts, and that makes sense.
Beyond COVID, a majority of the overcounted states spent money on census outreach, and a majority of the undercounted spent little to no money urging participation. There's also a historical census issue of minority groups being undercounted every decade. The November election will determine if it will matter in Washington.
Are we going to come down to a razor slim majority in the House or the Senate for either of the parties, or is it going to be, 5 or 10 seats, which means that this would be moot?
The post-census survey won't actually change anything. The official census results will remain. States have already gone through their redistricting processes and drawn their House congressional lines, and those results will remain until the next census in 2030. Matt Gulka, CBN News.
Well, we've got a long way to go to 2030, but if you look at this and realize that the undercount really matters, it matters not just in how many congressional seats are allocated, but it also matters in how many electoral college votes are counted. And so in a razor-thin election, 2, 3, 4 electoral college votes makes a huge difference. So could this determine 2024? We're going to see. In other news, another gunman has opened fire on a group of innocent people, this time at a church. Ephraim Graham has that story from the CBN newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, 2 people are dead and another one is injured after the gunman opened fire on a small group inside a suburban Alabama church during a community potluck. It happened Thursday night. Police have the suspect in custody, and the city is praying for healing. CBN's Brody Carter has our report.
A lone suspect entered a small group church meeting and began shooting.
Just outside of Birmingham, Alabama, St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in Vestavia Hills became the most recent target for a lone gunman.
3 people were shot. 2 people are deceased. 1 person is being treated for an unknown injury at a local hospital.
I'm so sad. I'm so prayerful for the families that was affected by this.
Linda Montana, a 20-year member at St. Stephen's, said she was in shock that her church is now a crime scene.
It's the lovingest, small, comfortable church. It's just a very community-oriented, very loving, very just reaching out to the community all the time.
Prayer circles formed in a nearby parking lot were the initial response of several people distressed by what happened.
I'm sad. This is something that you read about in the news. You see a lot of other places have experienced this, and it hurts that it's happened here.
Reverend Kelly Hudlow, missioner for clergy information for the Diocese of Alabama, says the community needs to be lifted up in healing through prayer and unity.
Police declined to identify the suspect or the victims, leaving out further details on the attack. Another press briefing is planned for Friday. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Turning now to the family holiday this weekend as the nation prepares to celebrate Father's Day, one father is recalling his fight for his son's life before he was even born. Charlene Aaron recently spoke to the former lead singer of the Christian band Sanctus Real about that journey and how he's now encouraging other fathers to fight as well.
After Matt Hammett's son was diagnosed with a life-threatening heart disease in the womb, doctors suggested abortion. But Matt and his wife instead chose life, a decision he urges other men make in the fight for life and family. On September 9th, 2010, little Bowen was born with hypoplastic left heart syndrome. Over 30% of children born with the condition don't make it to their 5th birthday. His father felt helpless.
All we could do is just wait and pray and try to find our hope in the Lord.
5 days later, Bowen underwent open heart surgery.
That night of his first surgery, actually, he had some complications to the point where he coded, and they called us and told us that his heart had stopped beating. And I think I had spent so many months just hoping and believing as a father and giving everything that I had, praying for that miracle and that breakthrough, that honestly, it really jarred me to get that call in the middle of the night.
The medical crisis came at the height of Matt's career as a member of the Christian band Sanctus Real. It was a test of faith as he questioned God why this was happening to his family.
At the very time that Sanctus Real was reaching the peak of our career with the song Lead Me on the radio, it was our biggest song we'd ever had. It was kind of my moment to really process those questions as a father and figure out how, as a dad, I could fight for my son, even just through my prayers and, being there for him and for my wife.
Miraculously, Bowen survived. Fast forward to 2022. Now 11 and 3 open heart surgeries later, Bowen is inspiring the lives of many through his own music. Grateful for his son's recovery, Matt is active in the pro-life movement, serving as ambassador with Save the Storks, a group that offers hope and empowerment to those facing unplanned pregnancies.
I think of all the women or young men who sit across from a doctor who says, the best choice for you is to relinquish your fatherhood or relinquish your motherhood and move on with your life. But that's not empowerment. Empowerment is saying you can choose this life that God has given you. You can be a mother and you can be a father, the father that God has called you to be.
Oh, I can hear her saying, lead me.
Meanwhile, Sanctus Real's hit song Lead Me, about a man needing to spend more time with his family, led Matt to leave the group in 2016, a decision he says made him a better husband and father.
I could see all my good intentions as a father, and I could see that there were so many things I wanted to do as a dad, and I think that that's been the biggest growth in me, is learning that it's great to have good intentions, but they're worthless until they become actions.
A message he now shares with other dads.
Celebrate who you're called and designed to be as a father, and get off the bench and really get into the game. It's the greatest job that we'll ever get to do in our lives, next to following Christ and loving the woman that he's put in our lives.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
So blessed to be called to be a father. Happy Father's Day to all of you out there. And Gordon, happy Father's Day to you as well.
And happy Father's Day to you, Ephraim. It's a wonderful privilege to be a father. So honor fathers this Sunday. Honor them and make sure you appreciate what they've done and how they've given so much to all of us. And let's pray the restoration of fatherhood in our country today. When you look at the average family and you see that it's a one-parent household and that parent is usually a woman. You know, we celebrate mothers, but wouldn't it be great for the restoration of fatherhood and the principle that fathers just don't leave. They stay there and they raise their children.